Hello, Serge here from the Backyard Driving Range. We have a question that came in from Bill Miller of Ohio, and it's a little on the long side, but I'm going to read it all because Bill says brings up a lot of good points. Don, I took up golf back in the 70s for about 8 years and quit because of my banana slice. No matter what tips I tried, it was always there. When I retired 6 years ago, I decided to take up the game again, but before I ever hit a driver again, I searched the internet for some instruction that would help me get rid of the dreaded slice. Fortunately for me, I ran across your website. I signed up for your daily videos and have been using your PP golf swing ever since. On all my shots, I favor a slight fade stance. So I think you're saying that you stand up what you think is a slightly open stance, which should produce a fade, which makes the ball fly reasonably straight with a roll to the right. All right, so reasonably straight means that you're probably at most getting a soft cut. My golfing buddies, which I used to play with when I had my banana sliced, are amazed at how reasonably straight I hit all my clubs. Sometimes I amaze myself when the ball actually goes where I aim it. I used to spray the ball all over the course. I have encountered two problems recently. One, to hit the sweet spot on my irons, I have to line the club up where the shaft is directly behind the ball. And two, in the last couple of weeks, my driver shots have started to fade / minor slice again. Still using the slight fade stance. What am I doing wrong? If I stand square to the target line, the slice is more pronounced. Okay, now this is almost starting to sound contrary to what actually should be happening here. So the first thing I have to say, Bill, is that there's a good chance what you're thinking is a slightly fade stance is in fact, it might be a fade stance, but I don't think I got a feeling you're not parallel left of your target line. You're still slightly open. All right? And, you're still slightly closed, aiming to the right of your target. In other words, even with your fade stance, which you think is a fade stance, if you put the club down by your toes and came back and checked it, I think you'd find that your shaft is still pretty close to the target, if not at it, or maybe even a little right of it, which would therefore mean your parallel line to the right of your target, your aiming line, would be way out there in right field someplace. So when you feel like you're got a slightly fade stance, you're probably right, but not that much right, which is why you might even be pretty close to square. But you're still having that tendency to cut across the ball, or at least have the club face coming in a little bit to hit the ball relatively straight. And the reason why I really believe that's the issue is because when you tell me that now you have to have to hit the sweet spot on my irons, I have to line the club up where the shaft is directly behind the ball. So that tells me, to me, that's the blinking neon warning sign that you are aiming to the right. Because when we always want the club to be directly dead in line with the shaft slightly with a forward lean, meaning that if I have the butt of the club pointing up towards my left hip somewhere in here, my right hand will always be relatively even to the ball. In other words, straight to the ball, it'd be a straight line from here. So if you have the shaft behind the ball, that means you have your hands behind the ball. Your hands are behind the ball too, which now means what? That's so that you can get the chance and release the club and have a better chance of getting the club back on line towards the target. So I really think what's happened now is you've probably started, for whatever reason, your slight fade stance. It might still be a slight fade, but it's now you're still totally aimed more to the right. And remember, all the students that I teach and all the golf schools we've done, we check everybody out. In 3.5 years of doing these PPGS schools and all the schools I did previous to that, we're batting only one guy has ever was truly lined up where he said. And especially now when we take the one-day schools, we go and play 9 holes in the afternoon and do a 9-hole playing lesson with them. He's the only guy that was even still lined up right on the golf course, correctly on the golf course. So I really believe you're lined up right, and that's why with the shaft back here, now you have to have more rotation to get the club in the catcher's mitt, relatively toe up and then up the tree. So if you tend to do this, and now at some point you've got your hands and the club kind of very likely going away together. Now you have to do what? You have to have a bigger rotation, which is actually akin to a flip. And now once that thing flips, where's it going to flip? It's going to flip and just want to keep going that way. So now all of a sudden it's going around flatter and slightly more inside and flatter. It now means you have to come. You're getting likely behind yourself in a sacred burial ground, and it's flat. You got to come out across. You got to come out of it, which means your shoulders are going to move first to help start the club back, especially if you're getting a little too long also. and you're coming outside to in, and so then you got to throw it, and you're slightly ahead of the ball, and you're hitting the ball late, and if the club is anything open, there's a reason why it's going to be slicing more. So I think without a doubt, it all goes back to the big A, alignment. I bet you it's starting with alignment. I will bet you your slight open fade is still aimed right at the target. Your open fade stance that you call it is still right at the target. So I think the whole thing has to go back. You need to start getting up over the ball. I'm going to use the camera as the target line, as a target. When we set up, that is our intended line. All right? Our intended line, the club line, the railroad track for the ball is the aiming line. The railroad track you're standing on for your body is we're going to say basically your toe or body line. When I say toe line, I mean toes, knees, hips, shoulders, and eyes. And I'll bet you that even in your slight fade stance, if you were to put a club down by your toes and come back here, and now that's your toe line, and you're going to stand over here between it and raise your hand up directly from your shoulder and point down parallel to your aiming line over here, that's way out to the right. So I'll bet you're aiming right, and then consequently, for whatever reason, you've bled a little bit more. So your actual aiming line, the one that once you take your stance and put the toes down, does not match your intended aiming line, which has the ball line going straight to the target and the body line left of it. I'll bet you your actual and your intended are not one and the same. That's why we say, I know I'm aiming correctly. Yeah, we think we're aiming correctly. We're hoping and praying we're aiming correctly. But in most cases, we're not. Because like I said, 90 to 95% of all swing problems arise out of alignment. That's our number one surgism there. I think I can go to 99% and say 99% of all swing problems arise out of alignment. And no matter how much we think we're aiming correctly, many, many times, and for most people, the vast majority, if not all the time, they're either aiming right or left of their target. Most righties will be aiming right majority of the time unless they're trying to play for slice, and it doesn't say here that you're trying to play for slice. You're trying to hit it straight. So I know you're not playing for it, so there's no way you're going to be left. Because every golfer I've ever asked who's aiming way left and slicing like crazy, and the ball's going either short of the target, staying left of it and don't reach it, or goes past it, way past the slicing, and I say, you're aiming way to the left. Oh, yeah. I do that on purpose. Well, why are you aiming to the left? Well, I'm playing for the slice. Do you want the slice? No. Well, if you don't want it, you can't play for it. You don't want the slice, you're not playing for it. So therefore, the only other conclusion I can basically draw is that Bill, you are very likely aiming right. So your actual aiming line and your intended aiming line are not one and the same. Your actual line is to the right. I'd be willing to place a dollar bet on that any day of the week. So you need to check yourself out. Get over every shot. Start getting over every shot. And or now and then when you think like you're aimed really good and you hit a ball and you hit a pretty good shot and it doesn't go where you want to, you made a good shot, hold your position, turn yourself back, put the club down by your toes and check it. And I'll bet you if you hit a good shot to a wrong place, you hit it exactly where you aimed. It would be exactly parallel right of where your toes were. And that's provided your knees, hips, and shoulders all the way up were the same. Alignment is very it, and everything you say in that you've been hitting it relatively straight, possibly a little cut, and now the slice is coming back. It has to be that even though when you think you're aimed correctly, you're really aimed right. So check your alignment, and I think because you're hitting it pretty good, the rest of your swing must be pretty good. So just get into better alignment, make your intended alignment become your actual alignment, and I bet you're going to see you'll be hitting it more solid and straight again, likely even longer. And so therefore keeping the ball and hitting it where you want to go to help you shoot those lower scores. That's it for the search for today, and I'll be talking to you all again soon.